This will be part 2 of the Phenocam processing. That'll start with the ROI, XROI tool, and that will be probably the most important and involved step, and then we'll go on from there. So this is again following the instructions in the ROI processing protocol, and so you're going to launch XROI, and it will bring up this, and you will have to go into the images directory and find your daily images folder for the Phenocam in question. And the first thing you're going to do is you want to isolate, confirm any field of view shifts with the CLI processor. So you hit generate CLI, and it's going to take a minute, but then it will spit out this time series of images where basically each strip here is an image, and it's kind of set up so that you can visualize any major field of view shifts. So just to show you, if I can click in here, and it will show me what the image is in that stripe. Click there. So looking at this, I can see there might be 2 FOV shifts. So I would at least check between, around here as it switches from reds to greens. And I would check again over here, not so much because I see a big difference, though I see some, but because the main thing is that I know there was a battery change on 617 to 618. We have 2 videos that were put together, one before 617 and one after. And so there's almost certainly an FOV shift at that date. So let's check here first. So before the switch, and I'm gonna look at something that I can notice shifting positionally. So I'll look at the corner of this roof, and after, and no. So there's really no FOV shift. It's that we're simply changing from red stuff on the trees over to the trees being more green. Something to note though is over here you're seeing that needle leaf tree kind of protruding out, and over here it's sticking up. So that's maybe going to tell you that it's maybe not worth doing an ROI for that needle leaf tree. We don't really care much about needle leaf trees anyway, because they have limited phenology. So now I'm going to head over here, and here we go. Let's see, I can hover over here and see the date, 6/19. So that would actually be after a shift. 6/18 and 6/17. You can see, yes, there is a large shift after 6/17, as expected because of that battery change. So basically, I'm going to be making my first set of ROIs that are only for the images up to 6/17, and then I'll have to make another set for the FOV after that because they will have moved. So we'll go back over to ROI tool, and the first things I'll put in are a vegetation type of reference panel. These are just going to be the invariant targets to correct for changes in brightness. So I'm going to have a look and see what we previously have. We've got invariant red sidewalk and invariant white sidewalk. And I think that's it. Yeah, so that looks okay. So just those two things. So I always just start by hitting the new button. I don't know why it's down here. It should be up here, just so everything resets properly. And then you're going to type in the name as it is in the little presentation. So invariant red sidewalk, type of reference panel. In this case, it's ROI 1, new ROI, and then we just make sure that this name is not what something else is named already. What in this case, I'm just starting, so it's not. And I'm going to click match. So you can see that this end date is like the very end of the file. We don't want that. I'm going to click match end, so it'll at least allow me to edit, and I'm going to switch up to June 17th. So that's where my FOV shift, the day before the FOV shift. So now I'll go ahead and actually do my target drawing. So click, 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 and then I want to make sure that this looks good, you know, in other dates. Like, is it still in the same place generally? Because if it's not, if it's way off, you know, there's little FOV shifts, like even right here, but that's still fine. You just don't want big changes. It might mean you'd want to make this smaller if it doesn't look like it's lining up. So that looks okay to me. And I will accept the drawing, and it will fill in with a nice transparency, and then I will save this ROI. So periodically, you'll want to go in, and this just got generated inside the daily images ROI folder. You're going to want to see that stuff worked out. And the stuff is that basically the description matches INV red sidewalk, and then I'm going to expand these columns, and the start date and the end date are correct. So you don't have to do this every time, but just a spot check, and initially when you're getting comfortable, don't save that. And then you can at least get a look at the TIFF, and you can see generally which ROI you were talking about. All right, so when you want to do your next one, you come and just click an empty space, hit the new button just to reset things. This one's going to be invariant white sidewalk. Reference panel, this one's going to be ROI2 though, of this reference panel type, and that will update the name down here, so that is pretty important. New ROI. Some of the stuff I don't understand why you have to do it, but you got to do it. So let's find a place to digitize a white sidewalk. And make sure it looks good. And that's okay if like the occasional obstruction is there, like a car. That's just the world we live in. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm satisfied, and I'll accept that. And let's deal with the dates. Match end, and June 17th. Good to go. And so then this one will also show up in there. So we're on to trees. So I'll do one tree here. I'm going to start by hitting new, clear things out. But now I'm going to do this tree right here, which I know is LIRO 1188. So change it over to mixed forest. So we're going to have all of the trees are just going to be mixed forest. LIRO 1188. New ROI. And let's just kind of see what changes over time. So we do have this kind of gets in the way, but you know, I think something like that. You kind of want to be, you know, as big as possible without getting other stuff in the frame. But you know, it doesn't have to be huge. Like this one is a really easy target to get. So I will accept that, and then I will make sure to change my end date to June 17th, and that should be it. So that's saved. So now I've got this MX001, the LIRO, and I'm going to just check. Oh, see, that didn't work. Sometimes I don't know why that happens, but that's why I sometimes want to check this until I figure out what's going on here. So, you know what though? You can probably just update that in here. So yeah, if that doesn't work, you can just update it in here and hopefully that will work. We'll check back on that one later. So this time you do save it and close it out. And let's do one more and see if that one works. So we'll do new mixed forest. This one you got to increment the ROI because we're up to number 2. And this one I'm going to do ACRU 1189, I think. That's going to be this guy up against across the street, or further away rather, I guess, up against this building. So I think it's right up here, but I might want to look at a few other images to match it up. So probably back here. So now you can see because they're in different phenological stages, so that actually makes it easier to see. So that looks pretty good, and so it doesn't get in the way of this other tree, this sweet gum that's in front of it. It just gets the maple back there. So back here is a new ROI. Hopefully this will hold this time. First I'll accept the ROI, make sure this still looks good, and then save this ROI. So let's see if that one took. Oops, that's the reference panel. MX002 617, you can see up here. So that one held. Okay, so I will stop. I won't show the rest of these right now, but I will finish them and come back. I guess I will at least show you which ones I'm going to do and which I'm going to ignore. So there's 7 ROIs here, including invariant targets. We've done 4 so far, 2 invariants and 2 trees. So there's 3 more supposedly. There's this little guy up in the corner, there's the needle leaf, and there's this sweet gum tree. I'm going to say this one up in the corner, I don't know what it is, it's too tiny, I'm going to stop doing that one. I would not have chosen that one. And this one we've decided not to do because it moves around. And so we've got the sweet gum is the only one left. So I guess I might as well just do it, right? You can fast forward if you want to. So new mixed forest, we're up to the 3rd mixed forest here. And this is going to be list 1190, I believe. Tough to see. Yep. List 1190. Draw this sucker in. Something like that. Make sure this holds fairly steady. Yep, that looks pretty good. Change the dates. Match end. June 17th. Accept the ROI. Save it. And because everything is a bit finicky, I'll go in and check it. Yep. Looks good. So okay, so we've completed creating the ROIs for this one FOV. So I'm going to do a little organization. This is, again, in the instructions, of course. Going to make a new subfolder here. That's going to be ROIs and then the start and end date of this FOV. And so that's 2021 0315 to 2021 0617. And we'll grab all those 3 files per ROI and move them in there. And so now I'm ready to do the next FOV. So for the new FOV, ideally I think you do these in the same order so they have the same file names. And remember now to move your little slider up till past the FOV shift. So okay, I think this looks like a good starting place, and I'm doing the invariant red. You know, the numbering starts over again because I'm starting basically fresh. And so we'll have a look back there and you'll see, okay, that's obviously bad because that's that FOV shift, but it's fine. And looks good. So save that and repeat for the trees. All right, the other invariant target and the trees. So I've gone ahead and done the ROIs for the other FOV and created a new folder. And I'll stick those in there. All right, so that's the hard part. That's the time-consuming part of this process. Now on to the extraction and processing. So I'll just close this down so I can make sure this stops listening and just I can stop the code, and then I'm going to open up Phenocam data extraction XROI automate. So this is going to do data extraction in a way that's faster than doing it in the XROI tool. So we need to set the working directory to your first FOV folder that you just made. So capture that path. I usually just add a slash, paste that onto the end, Control A to capture the whole thing, Control C to copy it. Paste that in, minding your slashes. Okay. And I don't think anything else needs to be changed. Nope, so I will can really just Control A and Control Enter to run all this code and it will do its thing. And just as a little tip while this is running, when you can't see anything happening and you're not really sure if something is going well or not, I like to bring up the task manager. And so to do that, you can just type task manager, go to the performance tab, and you can look at the CPU and see if it's doing anything, like if it's above 1% activity. And it was high for a while, now it's lower, and we also see that a progress bar appeared on the bottom, so that was fine too. So this should be done, and now I'll switch it over to the other ROI folder. So this extracts the actual color data and does some averaging. So for instance, it adds these data CSVs. And while I'm here, there's another thing to look at. Sorry, there's so many little gotchas here, but this is what happens when you use other people's code, etc. The price of science. So you can see that for some reason, this one output with a bunch of commas. That occasionally happens. And you just need to get rid of those. So now let's open that up. See what it looks like. So we've got the date time, well, the date at least, the time doesn't really matter. And we've got some actual metrics like green chromatic coordinate is one of the main ones that we use. And excess greenness is another one that you might encounter. And so this is the actual data that we've finally gotten to extracting up until, well, you can see it's all NAs because it's only up until the field of view shift. And then the other folder will contain the other stuff that we will then concatenate in the next code. So now I'm opening up FOV concatenation. This will stick the different field of views together and just make one bigger data set. Note that you will run this code no matter what, even if there's only one field of view. So first I'm going to create a new output folder that's going to relate to the metric that I'll ultimately be using, which I think for now is GCC. So we're going to go back all the way back out to the root of this particular Phenocam. And you can see we have a GCC folder here, but the instructions do say, we're going to separate this out by year. So this is going to be GCC 2020 now, assuming that's correct. Yep, 2020. And we're going to make a new one for GCC 2021. And that's where the output of this is going to go. So let's see, just grab this path. Change my slashies. And that should be it. So just like to clear my, select all this and run it. Uh-oh, better look into that. My bad, I put the wrong folder in here. So this is actually just supposed to be where you just made these ROIs. So the daily images ROI folder. So the little above the FOV folders. So you can grab both of them. Then you can see when you don't need to do this, but I'm just showing you. We can see that now the paths, there are paths to all of these ROIs that we made. There's 10 because there's 5 times 2 FOVs. And now I should be able to run the whole thing. Okay, that ran fine. And now we do need to move some data. This was the data that just got created. So we have our 5. Again, these are now concatenated. Let's just have a look to make sure. So the early stuff and the late stuff is all there. So good. So we're ready to have our GCC. But since this is kind of our final data, I'm going to cut that and put that out in that new folder that I just created. So GCC 2021. So the final main processing step where you'll actually output the phenometrics and some plots is this Phenocam Phenometrics V2 code. And this the instructions give you line-by-line instructions of what to enter. So first of all, you'll set the working directory to this GCC 2021 folder that you just put the concatenated like GCC data in. You'll update this file name, probably just making sure that it's, you know, SOS versus EOS and the year. Everything else pretty much stays the same. The next thing is line 68. Making sure that, again, it's SOS or EOS and that the year is correct. So then you would, oh, let me get rid of this. Then you would go ahead and you could run 0 and 1 here, get things ready. Now we're going to look at invariant targets. This is a little bit of an art, not a science. Let me just show you. I'm going to run the code block 2, and we're seeing how the GCC of these 2 invariant targets varies over the time span. So from March 15th to July 30th. So this first one is probably the red sidewalk. That kind of brightness goes down and then gets kind of scattered. And the white sidewalk also goes down and then kind of gets scattered. And so the reason there's 2 is so you can take an average of them. And this is the average. So the upshot here is I would rather use the average mostly. It's just if you see massive differences in how these 2 invariant targets are behaving, you may just want to let me know so we can take a look. So I would like to say just do nothing, and that's fine in this case. These are pretty similar in terms of their plots. So after you do that, you can just run the rest of the code. And this will now make 4, in this case, 4 outputs. So 1 plot per tree. So the ACRU is, you know, we got our early season out to after 7:30 here. And the key metric well, here is going to be this yellow one, which is going to be halfway between the baseline and the maximum. So that's going to give you a day of year for start of season. And you can see it is pretty noisy data. the sweet gum, the liquid ambar rotundiloba, is better looking data. It's not surprising. That was a good ROI. And so we probably have a decent estimate of start of season there. And then finally, the liquid ambar styraciflua, or a different sweet gum, who knows? Looks okay, but we're not quite sure how all this pans out. And the key data text output is these actual metrics. So the SOS for each tree, the day of maximum greenness, and the peak of flowering in this case. And so these are the final tables, like all that work, and you got this data out of it. And this is what you'll add back to the full spreadsheet. So for that final grand spreadsheet, I'm back to the most recent Phenocam metrics spreadsheet. And this is going to be GCC. And you would look to see if it's already existed for your particular Phenocam here. It does not look like it does. This is a new one. And so we'd add in 118, something like this, 3 times. We're going to move over this data. And so we have SOS, VI max, and peak of flowering. And we want to put in the year. And that is it.